little favors, and you've helped us a lot over the years. Like, we've done a lot of external work, exercises that we do, so it helps us kind of give people a really important heads up and I think I've always been very grateful that you've done, and that's because I'm not a professional creative illustrator and you are. I think we've worked together my company's been going for 10 years now, and I think we've been working with you on and off for about 7 or 8 of those years. I think there's so many choices to select how you begin to pick a creative angle for your marketing. I've always received great feedback from our clients that they feel that the illustrations that you and your team produce are really on brand with our own company values and our own style, and that it feels quite authentic to us. So whilst we are quite serious consultants and we work, in some serious businesses, actually one of the ways that we like to work is to be quite playful, a bit provocative, a bit cheeky sometimes. And so all of those things I think are sort of somewhat shared in your style. And I think people really we're able to really explain quite complex ways of working in really simple, fun little images that you create. So that's the reason. Well, actually, you've always done 2 types for us. You've always done what I would call internal, which is for our internal marketing, which is one you've just done for us. That's always quite exciting because that feels like it's for in-house purposes. It feels a little bit more emotional for me as the business owner. But you've also done a lot of external work as well, and where you've worked with a lot of our event client when we do events or small events or even leadership team work. And it's been very pleasing and quite satisfying for me personally to see that you penetrate into those organizations with your same style as well. And so it's been great that we've been able to see your work and our work keep living on in businesses together. That's been great. I'm always a little bit intrigued what the final output will look like, a little bit like a kid at Christmas wondering what the toy will be. And I know it sounds crazy, but my favorite bit is always having the outcome better than I hoped. It's always better than I hoped. So even in your own mind, without knowing what the final execution will look like, I can always say that the final outcome is better than I sort of imagined. And that's because I'm not a professional creative illustrator and you are. Is clarity. We're clearer on what we stand for. We're clearer on what we're offering and why we're offering it. And whilst they look like fun, informal images, really that's our entire company proposition and our service portfolio. And I think to have it captured so simply and clearly means that we are in turn able to talk about it more confidently and more clearly as well, which I think helps. So if we had imagine if we didn't use you and we were using long-winded copywriting words instead, I'm not so sure that we would all have the consistent confidence to explain and communicate what we do so well. So I think it helps us be clearer about what we do, what we stand for. A comment I had earlier was, oh, cool, that's really cool, or and sometimes we use the individual images in exercises that we do, so it helps us kind of give people a really important heads up or manage their expectations a little bit more. So the comments they help us, I think. It sort of augments our existing style of being a bit playful, provocative, human. It's all in the public domain, so our website clearly. But we have a really cool sales brochure that we would send and sell with, and now we can share screen, which I think everybody shares screen a little bit more on video. I love sharing the screen and explaining the illustration by virtue of communicating our service. So it's all in our marketing collateral. We also use it in our services. So actually, when we're actually doing the work inside a client, we like taking the individual images as a sort of like a dividing chapter, if you like, so as a sort of signpost to what we're doing next and this kind of thing. So and also when we write up our end of project consultancy report, the images sometimes figure in there as well. So kind of end to end, really, from the very start of the journey right away to the very end. So it's quite nice to have your illustrations as our golden thread, you could say. If we were to try and attempt to capture in what you're able to do with our 24 images and our own illustration for our own marketing collateral, imagine if we did that in words or paragraphs or an infographic or something. It would look really busy and confusing. I believe it would look dull and worse and inferior because of it. What I think the illustrations help us do is not get too hung up on explaining it all, but to give people a really clear, unambiguous indication about what it is we do. So I think each picture can be descriptive enough without necessarily having to write out all of the explanation. I think they're enough for people, and I think I think it essentially means we can communicate more in less. It's probably the ultimate benefit. I do think that in this current era where we're all so cluttered with notifications, apps, emails, messages, our minds are very cluttered. I think to offer only words to human beings is opening yourself to poor communication and lack of understanding on occasions. Words alone are probably not enough. They probably don't cut it. Whereas I do think a really well executed illustration, and maybe plus a simple word or plus a sentence, I think you are probably ensuring that people are able to understand what's being put in front of them more clearly, and with a bit more, make it a bit more memorable potentially as well. Actually, so I think it could be used for almost anything really. But in terms of if you're looking to communicate well and clearly, I think almost anybody could use it. I've also just appreciated little favors, and you've helped us a lot over the years, and I think that's really helped us. Last minute requests for clients through us. We're like, oh, can you just do this one little thing? Oh, I'm so sorry to ask you today for this deadline today. And I think I've always been very grateful that you've done those little favors for us, and I think that's important to us because the clients clearly like what you do through us, and I think it's ultimately a sign that they value what you do. And I'm sorry that we've had to ask you last minute a few occasions, but actually I think ultimately it's a big compliment that we have to do that sometimes.